Richard Holliday. Richard, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
First question is, how is the air today? Is it in fact rare?
The air is always rare.
For sure. Oh yeah, so we were just talking actually before we hit record. You just got back from a tour in my neck of the woods. You wrestled in England, Scotland, Ireland, not in my country of Wales, unfortunately. But hopefully we'll get you on a show here one day. What has the sort of Euro run been like? Taking this Richard Holliday hype train worldwide. How's it been?
It was great. This was my third tour of the UK, and now branching into Ireland as well. Because I was in the southern part of Ireland. I was in Cork. So I love going over to Europe. I think that the wrestling over there is fantastic. I think the fans are tremendous. I think particularly because they don't have, you know, um, the big companies over there on a regular basis. Independent wrestling is kind of the lifeblood of their enjoyment in terms of professional wrestling. So independent wrestling is huge over there, as you know. And just being able to go all over the place, and to me, it's almost like a vacation, even though I'm there for work, right? Because I get to see all these amazing places and test the amazing cultures and try different things and see things that you just don't normally see over here in America, like just the countryside and how beautiful it is, and um, it's awesome, man. It's awesome. Third tour in 3 years, so maybe I'll take another year off because it is very taxing with all the travel, but it was awesome.
How is it sort of applying all the stuff that works so well for you over on the American circuit and bringing that to other parts of the world and seeing how that lands with different audiences? Does it sort of change the way you work or the way you approach your work when you're wrestling overseas, or is it pretty much universal the way it applies?
No, so my belief is if there's somebody who is, let's say they're familiar with me in the UK,
Hmm.
and they see that Richard Holliday is on a show, they don't want to see Richard Holliday do something to try and conform to what they're normally seeing. They want to see Richard Holliday do what Richard Holliday does. Then, if there's fans who are unfamiliar with me, well, now I have to let them know what I'm all about. I can't just be somebody that they typically see all the time. They have to get the authentic version. That's the most important thing. And I think that's the case for any wrestler. If any wrestler were to go to a different region of the world, don't try and emulate what they do over there. Do what you do, and then you'll stand out. And that's why I stand out.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective actually, because you see it a lot, especially going to independent shows here in the UK, is that you'll have talent from America come over, and like you said, you may be familiar with with their work already, but you see them maybe trying to test things out or sort of trying to react to what they think the crowd may appreciate. But I suppose what you're saying is just sort of staying true to yourself and the way you work and getting over worldwide, being the same person.
Be the same person. Be the authentic version of yourself. What's working for me here works for me here just simply as because where I'm at, right? But if I go somewhere else, I'm fully anticipating it's going to work over there. I have no doubt. It's a confidence thing too. I'm very confident in what I do, and this is what I bring to the table. We're at a different table now, right? I'm in Ireland. I'm in Scotland. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to bring the same ingredients to the table and do what I do. People are going to love it.
And what's the sort of reception be like from fans in the UK and Europe, and how they respond and recognize you now as a performer as they did maybe 3 years ago when you were on your first tour of the UK? Are you noticing a sort of bigger wave of support and appreciation behind you this time around?
It's totally different. It is completely different. Um, it's a perception thing, right? So like 3 years ago, I wasn't as big on social media as I am now.
Hmm.
And now you go over there. But also, it's an accumulation of just like the equity that you build within the wrestling industry, right? Like I've been doing it when I went over there for my first tour, which would have been this was 26, 25, 24, 2024. Um, I didn't have as much. I have 2 more years of additional equity of having great matches all over the place that people can see. Because obviously people in the UK, they watch a lot of wrestling outside of it, right? So they might be on a Triller or an IWTV or YouTube or whatever the case may be, and they're seeing wrestling from all over the world. So it's an additional 2 years of equity of having great matches and building your character. But then it's also the social media aspect and just growing so much on social media. And obviously, we'll use Instagram as a platform. It's worldwide. If I post something, anybody can see it. It's not just secluded to America. It's you could check the insights. It's all over the world. And I have dove pretty deep into social media, as people know now. One of the social media guys, one half of the Matt Cardona guys, as heard on the Cody Rhodes podcast. That's true. That's a fact. And social media has really exploded my career. It has. And a lot of wrestlers don't take advantage of it. And I don't really mind because I take advantage of it. And if less wrestlers take advantage of it, that's just more advantageous for guys like me. So go to answer your question, to go over there on this particular tour with the whirlwind of momentum that I have on social media. Yeah, it was pretty big. Let's just say that the signature move is a worldwide phenomenon at this point.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting what you said there about social media. I think one thing that a lot of guys really undervalue is, yes, is the sell yourself, but in a way, social media, especially for indie wrestlers, can now be a way of sort of long-term storytelling. You can almost, have episodic storylines when performing in, promotions all over the world, and have like a through line through them that people can still follow. And I'm sure that, that helps in terms of promoters aren't just looking for talent. They could be looking for, I want to be involved in this storyline. So I suppose social media kind of runs deep in that sense as well.
You can do whatever you want on social media. You can sell yourself, you can sell a fight, you can sell a promotion, you could sell a t-shirt, you could sell whatever you want on social media. You just have to dive into it and you have to commit to it. But also you have to be interesting. You have to have something that is interesting, because we're fighting for screen time. This is the absolute worst that anybody's attention spans have ever been. It's only going to get worse probably. Um, and you're fighting for screen time because that thumb that thumb will scroll very, very quickly. People are triggered to do this, right? It's almost like wiring now. So you have to grab their attention immediately in order for them to see. If you're going to put out something that's a minute and a half piece of content, if you're trying to sell either yourself or tickets to an event, right? You want to gauge interest to get people into the door, and it's a minute and a half long. You got to keep them throughout that minute and a half, but getting their attention off the first couple of seconds is the most important thing, because people are just so triggered to do this and scroll. Um, so you have to be really keen on things like that, and you have to strategize. So you have to be interesting on social media. That's the most important thing. Once you're interesting, then you can deliver whatever message it is that you want to do. But being interesting is the most important part.
Yeah, and I suppose in that vein, your background in marketing and your degree has sort of served you in that respect. And I wonder what sort of psychology from that have you applied to when you were first initially building, Richard Holliday, the iconography, the ring gear, the music, the move set. What sort of thinking went into that from a marketer's perspective?
Yeah. So, I mean, getting that degree almost feels like a literal lifetime ago, because I'm just living such a different life right now, just so deeply engulfed in professional wrestling that I forget that I was a student at one point. I was going to college at one point and getting a degree in marketing. And it's funny because, my Instagram and Twitter handle is Most Marketable, and a lot of people know me as that. And, now they're seeing all the genius marketing that I'm doing. But when I first started in my career, I wasn't most marketable, right? There was maybe a 2 year period where I wasn't using that moniker or that tagline per se. And I remember just seeing my degree on the wall, and I was laying there, and I wasn't doing much in wrestling. Obviously, I was just starting out. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, what a waste of money that is, right? Like, I paid all this money to go to a university, I have that degree, I'm not doing anything with it. I don't have a job within marketing. When I'm going to school, I'm envisioning I'm gonna work for, this, Major League, Baseball team, or I'm gonna work for, Coca-Cola, and I'm gonna work be in the marketing department of these major companies pitching slogans and things like that. That wasn't the case. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, "What a waste of money this degree is." I really regret it because I played football in college and I wasn't really thinking, right? But I had this degree in marketing, so I'm looking at it and I'm going, "Well, wrestling is kinda just marketing. It's really all it is. You're just
Mm,
marketing yourself, marketing a wrestler. I'm pretty marketable. And maybe
for
I'm the
sure.
most marketable." And I remember calling up one of my friends who was also in the wrestling business, and I went, "Hey, man, uh, I'm gonna start calling myself the most marketable man in wrestling." And he goes, "You're not." And I went, "How am I not?" And he goes, "Because you're just not the most marketable man in wrestling." I went, "Well, I think I am." And then right then and there, I knew I had a winner. Because if I was able to piss off somebody who's in the wrestling business, my God, what am I going to do to the fans? Um, but really, it allowed me to just take what I learned in school and just kind of apply it to the wrestling business of having great gear, having a great look, having good music. And it does take time. You think you have it figured out when you're first starting out. You don't. You have to fail in order to learn. And I failed a lot of times, maybe not even knowing it, but just countless times of trying things and it not really sticking until you get to like a final form and it's like, okay, now I know what works.
Mm. It's interesting that what you mentioned there about, being able to piss your friend off, because I think that this is a sort of, not a tactic, but something that a lot of people in the world of media are well aware of, is this idea of being polarizing to some extent, right? You have to be willing to sort of irk or piss off a subset group of people to then on the opposite side have a group of diehard fans. So I think in the world of personality, I think being anything but polarizing is probably to the detriment to some extent. And I suppose, if you are pissing people off, in a sense, you're doing something right.
Absolutely. So I could take the polarization aspect and we can apply it directly into professional wrestling,
Mm,
where I tell people all the time, people don't want to see wrestlers wrestle. They want to see stars wrestle.
mm.
So you have to be a star. Being a star is being polarizing. So how are you going to be different? If everybody on a professional wrestling show is a good wrestler, and I hope that's the case, how are you going to stand out? You have to be a polarizing entity. You have to be somebody who people remember and they're like, "Whoa, Richard Holliday, you know, do I remember the wrist lock he did? Probably not. But do I remember the way that he walked to the ring and his music and his gear and the thing he said and all his, mannerisms and him saying hair guy, stash guy, body guy, tan guy, just saying all these things, it resonates with people. It's all resonation, right? How do you um make somebody leave an event or a show? And this applies to anything really. Like this could apply to business and if you're at a conference or something, you just want to be somebody that people remember. And if people remember you, they'll talk about you. And if people talk about you, other people find out about you. That's just how it works.
Yeah, and as we've sort of alluded to, you're on a hell of a run at the moment on the indies, working with some incredible names, some incredible talent. You're as hot as you've ever been on the scene. Some would say the hottest talent in indie wrestling right now. What do you attribute the success of this sort of current run over the last 6 to 12 months?
So again, I'm going to credit it to a few different things. I don't think it's one singular item. I do think that it is the equity that I've built over the past 11 years, right?
Mhm.
I had my first match in August of 2015. So August of this year will be 11 years. I do think a part of it is the equity that I've built and people just realizing like, hey man, this guy's been doing it for a while and he's very good at it. But then again, it's to the polarization and the resonation that we talked about. Having something that is um let me see if this makes sense. I think it will. If it's like intangibly tangible, right? It's you can't touch the signature move unless I strike you with it, of course.
Mm.
Um, but it is something that fans can gravitate towards.
Yeah.
And it's something that people pay to see the signature move.
Mm.
because it really is the most popular, talked about, innovative, imaginative, devastating, original move in all professional wrestling. It's a sight to see at this point. I kind of it's very similar to when I know you live in Wales. This might not resonate with you, but for any American fans out there who are listening to the show, it's kind of like when Barry Bonds would approach the plate. They're like, this guy's going to hit a home run. I'm paying to see Barry Bonds hit a home run. It's like what Aaron Judge is doing right now. It could be, you know, I'm not a huge football fan the way that you guys are over there, but it's like, people pay a ticket. They want to see, um, Cristiano Ronaldo score a
Mm.
goal.
Yep.
They want to see Richard Holliday hit the signature move at this point. And then I switched up my look, man. Hair guy, tan. I've always been a tan guy. Always been a body guy, but now I'm hair guy, tan guy, stash guy. I'm just a more interesting person now. And not that I wasn't always interesting when I first started, because I was, but I know how to take it to another level. You have to evolve. Um, so I credit to all those things, man. It's just the total package at this point. The just when you see Richard Holiday on the marquee, you're like, okay, I'm in for a good night.
Yeah, and as you alluded to this, I mean, many would say that the greatest signature move in all of wrestling. And I know, so much science and research and time went into perfecting this, right? So how and when did you start to develop this move?
Bro, it's coming up on about a year, and I'm like I'm a scientist, just breaking it down to a molecular level
Mm.
of perfecting the move and perfecting my form and being in the gym and finding different ways to actually add torque and velocity to my strike. A lot of people, they just focus on becoming an overall great wrestler and trying to be a jack of all trades. Well, I am a great wrestler, so now I can just hone in on perfecting this one singular move, the signature move, the most popular move in all professional wrestling. And of course, the signature sets up the finisher. If I hit my finish on you, the 2008, if I hit the signature finisher combo, it's over, it's done. Um, but the signature move, again, I have mastered it to this point. Some may say that people have done this move in the past. I tend to disagree. I don't believe that anybody has ever done my signature move, um, particularly the way that I do it. So I take a lot of offense to when people say that other people have done it. Nobody has ever done my signature move. I want that perfectly clear. Um, it is my move.
Yeah. Well, I know no one's certainly done it, but obviously I think a few have maybe paid tribute to it. I think, I was watching WrestleMania Sunday, I'm sure everyone was, and I think it was pretty clear that, one CM Punk in the main event
Yeah.
I mean, must have been paying homage to you.
Yeah, I mean, and that's all it is. You in wrestling now, you do see a lot of wrestlers paying homage and paying tribute to people that they are fans of. And listen, I think CM Punk is fantastic, and the signature did set up the finisher for him. It just his timing was off, and of course his
Mm.
technique just wasn't going to be there for that. But he did pay homage. I thought that was very cool. My phone was blowing up. I actually had to put the phone away because there just too many messages were coming through of people saying that CM Punk stole your signature move. And then eventually I got back to him. I'm like, hey guys, listen, he didn't steal it. He asked for permission.
Mhm.
And he was paying homage. And I thought that was very cool that in the main event of WrestleMania, he would pay homage to me. So very cool moment.
Yeah, really classy touch, I thought.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit earlier about how storylines and rivalries can be built across different promotions now. I think one that has been a sort of big part of the indie wrestling scene has been yourself and Tommy Invincible. Where does that rivalry sit amongst the most definitive of your adversaries so far in your career?
Well, Tommy Invincible is certainly a I guess we can classify him in the polarizing individual category, albeit maybe for reasons you wouldn't want to be all too polarizing, but he is. So he keeps bumping into me in places. He's clearly obsessed with me. I can't even go to a CVS without Tommy Invisible showing up and rearing his ugly head. Um, And really he is quite idiotic. He always tells me to shave my mustache. It's like, dude, this is an iconic mustache. Like, why don't you grow some hair, pal? He was buying shampoo in a CVS one day. I don't know if you saw that video. He's bald. Um, yeah, Tommy is he's an idiot. Um, and people are I've seen people actually comment this. This is a very real thing. They have said that me and Tommy is the modern day Rock and Austin.
Mm. I would
Um,
agree.
and and that's you would agree? I mean,
Yeah.
that's insane. I am out here being the hottest independent professional wrestler in the world, and Invisible has shown up in malls performing in front of 11 people. So, um, you know, Tommy, if he bumps into me one more time, I'm just gonna hit him with my signature move right then and there. I don't care who's around. I don't care who's watching. Nobody's exempt. I could strike anybody at any time, anywhere. I have stricken Tommy before in the confines of a professional wrestling ring. I've always tried to keep it cordial outside because I know how dumb he is. But next time I see him, I that's it. It's on site. It's on site.
Mm.
He's getting struck
And I've seen, he tries to follow you everywhere. He crashed the
everywhere.
TMZ interview. I had a message from my team earlier, actually, that he was, he caught wind that you were coming on the show. He was trying to get a link, so we had to really lock it down and secure it from him. So he won't be here today. But man, we had to
Don't do what
work hard to
TMZ
stop
did.
it.
Do not do what TMZ did. That was the most unprofessional thing ever from TMZ to allow him to break into my interview.
Yeah, well, he tried his best, but we managed to thwart him.
Good.
Going back then to the beginning, I'd love to ask you this question because I'm always fascinated. I think every fan of professional wrestling at some point, they had those dreams of making those first steps and sort of learning the craft. What are your very first memories of wrestling? Whether it was when you were a little kid, seeing it on TV for the first time, like what are your earliest memories of wrestling?
My earliest memories would be probably 1997, late 97, walking into my um father's room, and he was well, my parents' room, and my father had the TV on, and Monday Night Raw was on.
Mm,
And I remember seeing Kane. I believe it was Kane. He's kind of my first memory. He is my childhood favorite wrestler of all time. Is Kane actually? Um, and I remember that we used to have a Coliseum, maybe 15 minutes from my house. They tore it down now, but WWF at the time used to come through New Haven all the time, at least twice a year. And my mother was friends with somebody who worked at the box office, and I used to get tickets every year to every event that they would come to. Um, and I remember getting a Dude Love action figure from one of the events. And these are just like little memories that I've had. But I mean, I grew up in the Attitude Era. I'd be, 5, 6 years old. So I don't have all the memories completely stuffed in my memory
mm.
bank, but little things like that stick out. But um, yeah, I mean, I was just so enamored by it. I just remember from 5, 6 years old, this is all I've ever wanted to do.
Yeah, well, we love Kane on this show. He was the first guest on this show, and I think that speaks something actually because when you're younger, the characters the wrestlers you're drawn to are the Kanes, the Undertakers, the characters, the personalities, which sort of lines up with what we were talking about today. You can be the best wrestler on planet Earth, but unless you have a bit of character and personality behind you, that's not what people are going to gravitate towards. And I think when you think back to your favorite wrestlers as a child, I think that speaks volumes to that.
Yeah, and oddly enough, this was a time period where Stone Cold and The Rock were by far the most popular wrestlers in the world, but I gravitated towards Kane and The Undertaker.
Mhm.
Oddly enough,
Yeah.
it doesn't really translate to my style of wrestling today at
No.
all. You might not look at Richard Holliday and say, "Well, he's a massive Kane and Undertaker fan," but that was the case when I was a kid.
And do you remember the moment you decided, I'm gonna take that step. I'm gonna step into wrestling school for the first time and actually learn how to do this? Because I think again, people have the desire to do that, but in a sport like wrestling, where the learning curve is so high, and you probably are gonna feel pretty stupid or pretty embarrassed the first couple of times you try it. Do you remember stepping in for the first time and getting the basics down and what that felt like stepping into a school for the first time?
I do, yeah. So um, my 2 trainers were Mario Mancini and Paul Roma. But Mario was the first person I ever got into the ring with, and I
Mm.
remember him putting me through a few just drills, hitting the ropes, doing the what we call an up and over, taking a bump, doing a couple of rolls, this, that, and the other thing. And I do everything, and he sits me down and he goes, "Kid, I'm gonna tell you something straight up right now." And I'm thinking he's gonna tell me like, "Hey man, this is not for you," or something like that. He goes, "People are not going to like you." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Because you're a natural at this."
Mm.
He goes, "You're gonna be excellent at this." And I just had a huge smile on my face, and I said, "Well, I know I'm gonna be great at this." Um, yeah, I was a natural.
When was your how long after stepping into that school for the first time? How long before you had your first match, and what were the feelings like going into? Because everyone I've spoken to so far talks about the over all the nerves they've had over their careers. Always that first match, even if it's in front of 5 people.
Yeah, so my first match, oddly enough, so obviously I trained in Connecticut with Paul and Mario. My first match was in South Bend, Indiana.
Hmm.
So me, Paul, and another student, we traveled 13 hours in a car to Indiana, and I wrestled the promoter of the show that we were on. So he's promoting this event. He doesn't really have time to for him and I to really interact at all. So yeah, needless to say, I was very, very nervous. Um, but once you get through it and that, you feel that adrenaline for the first time, you're like, oh man, like the nerves are worth it. It's worth it to get from the nerves to the adrenaline. And to this day, I still get nervous before every match. I think you have to. There has to be that level of nerve. There has to be that creative energy that you have. Um, whether it's classified as nerves or like I said, creative energy. Either or, you still have that feeling. And I have that before every match. I just wrestled last night and I was nervous going into it. But then you come through the curtain on the other end and that adrenaline just overtakes the nerves that you had, and it's all worth it.
What have been between that first match and today, if you could pinpoint maybe 2 or 3, what have been some of the defining moments of your career so far where you look back to and you think, these are either definitive moments or turning points? What moments come to mind?
Man, I would say there's tons of moments. Probably, the first match I had for MLW was definitely a defining moment for me because, it proved that I can be featured on a major platform. But really it's getting in there with guys who you once, saw um from the vantage point of maybe a fan, and then they
Mm.
become your peers. So, wrestling, solidifying myself really as the top independent wrestler in the world has come from getting in the rings with the guys like a Matt Cardona or a Nick Nemeth or a Killer Cross or a Jack Swagger, or guys like that who I've shared the ring with, Savio Vega, and just again building the equity with the fan base and them seeing like, man, this Richard is that guy.
Mm.
It just this run in general right now is the definitive run of my career of just proving each and every time I get in the ring that I am that guy. And when it is like a former WWE or AEW guy going up against me, there's no disparity here. It's it's at the bare minimum we're equals, and man, I might even say that Richard is a tick above just because of the momentum that I have right now.
Yeah, and I think, if I saw it correctly, are you booked against Andrade coming up soon?
I am.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's a real acid test, right? Because, that's a guy that people consider, you know in this very day, one of the best technical wrestlers, in-ring workers in the world right now.
Yeah, he absolutely is. He absolutely is. And I think I'm one of the best technical wrestlers in the world right now. It's just maybe you don't see that all so much because I'm so polarizing and you remember again, people don't remember the wrist locks and the headlock takeovers. but they remember the way that they make you feel, and they remember the moments. And I don't think that there's a bigger moment in pro wrestling than when I hit my signature move. Again, it's like Aaron Judge going for the home run record. You pay to see it. You're on your feet. When I'm in the ring, people are dying to see me hit the signature move.
Well, as we start to wrap up, just a couple more questions. One being, we've mentioned that match you have coming up with Andrade. Is there anything else throughout 2026? Are there any goals you've set yourself, or milestones, or places you particularly like to work, or parts of the world you'd like to wrestle in? Is there anything you've set yourself as a challenge for this year ahead?
Yeah, when your career is moving as fast as it is right now for me, it's tough to because I just take a look at my schedule and how packed it is and where I'm going, and I'm doing all these amazing things and going to all these amazing places that, the goal is to just own the day. And I tell this to people all the time. I just own the day. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do have a calendar. So I could take a look at whatever the date is today, and I can make that day the best that it possibly is. And I can grow my brand on that day. That's the most important thing, is growing your brand every single day. And I do that at a very high level. Um, but to answer your question, because I don't want to dodge the question, um, man, coming off of that Euro tour, I want to go to different regions of the world because, like I said, there's fans out there who are dying to see the signature move live. I want to go to Australia in particular. I'd love to go to Japan. Hell, man, you know what? Let's go to Wales. Um, there's so much wrestling throughout the world, and we can't deprive the people of the signature move. They want to see it. Promoters should know that. So let's just make this thing worldwide.
And I suppose the last thing I'll ask you, has there been any movement on a collaboration with Pink? Who I will say, I think, it's a no-brainer. I mean, she's the one benefiting from the partnership, I would imagine. So,
Yeah.
has there been anything? Has there been any negotiations?
Um, you know, Let me just take the time right now to say, Pink, if you are listening to this interview, um, let's make this collaboration happen. As you can see, there's a gentleman out here in Wales who is dying for this collaboration to happen. This is something that could take the world by storm. Pop culture and professional wrestling. Let's join them together in the ultimate collaboration, and let's get this thing going.
Well, I have her on good authority. She's a massive fan of this show. So,
Good.
maybe
Tag
this is
her.
the one that'll
Don't
make it
think.
happen.
Tag Pink. Don't think. Tag Pink.
I love it. Richard Holliday, thank you so much for joining me today, man. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege. And yeah, wishing you all the best with everything that's ahead. And I'm really excited to follow you along on this journey.
Excellent, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me.